Let's do this. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Maria and I am a Romanian kniter who lives and knits in Norway. Today I thought to come and talk to you about all the patterns that I've made so far, but that I don't have it anymore. And why? If you have been here from the beginning of my knitting podcast, you might notice how much or how many projects I always have on my needles. I've started to knit for myself 3 years ago, but actually I have 2 years since I exclusively knit for myself. And you might wonder, what is she doing with all those sweaters and cardigans she's making? Because in 3 years I've made dozens. I've made a lot. And it's so interesting to see how my preferences evolved in terms of my expectations from a knitting pattern and my expectations from me as a knitter who is getting more and more experience, because of course with every garment or accessory we are making, our skills keeps getting better and better and better. Now, do I have all the knits or all the knitted garment that I've started to make 3 years ago? No, I don't. I probably don't have not even half of them, which means that a lot or more than half were a failure. And as a knitter and as a person who is coming every month to talk about her projects and the yarn I'm using and things that I am or not modifying, I think it's also a responsibility to be honest and to give you a really a personal feedback on what it works at this point for me and what not, and why I think it's not working. Now, again, this is just a personal opinion or conclusion if you want, because we are different. We have different tastes, preferences, bodies, weights, and so on. And since I'm considering, and not just me, in general, people are considering knitting a very expensive craft, which is true. Yeah, I think it's must be done chatty special episode. Now, in this today, the episode of today, I will not talk about all the garments I don't have anymore because they didn't work for me, because the time is not enough today, and this will become a very long episode, and I know it's not for everybody. But again, I feel responsible for what I am talking on every knitting podcast episode. And I want you to see the other part of this craft and how people that we are following are influencing on us. Because one thing I've learned with having a knitting podcast, of course, my podcast is not it's not popular as others. It's not something that bothers me, not at all. But still, you are important for me. You are coming here maybe for every episode or from time to time, and I think it's important also to share the not so wonderful and interesting and nice part of the knitting. Okay, in today's chatty episode, I will talk about a few knitting patterns that are extremely popular in the knitting community, in the online knitting community, because this is another reason why I think we are knitting projects that they are not actually what we want, like, and need, but because we see them on other people feed and in other knitting podcasts or in general in social media, we get influenced. And another thing that I've learned is that the more skills you learn, or the more different patterns you are making, the more you start to really see what you need and want to knit, and become more and more selective. And after 3 years, and after more than 2 years of trying and trying and trying, and sometimes being extremely frustrating, I just accepted that I don't need to knit what everybody is knitting if I don't feel that project. And this way I am becoming, again, more and more selective. Another thing, it's about how challenging a pattern it is for me. Because I'm becoming more and more experienced with knitting, it's also becoming a little bit more difficult to work simple projects. Yes, it's like I'm always looking something I've never made or combined in a knitting pattern. And this is great, but at the same time it's annoying, because sometimes you just need to relax and enjoy a project, not always being in a hurry to, okay, let's see, what can I learn with this project? Yeah, so I think it's never a perfect balance. I think there are times with ups and downs, and those downs are actually the ones that are affecting my joy of knitting. Yeah, now I will start with a very popular pattern. It's the porcelain sweater by Lene Helme Samsø. I saw this pattern on Instagram because this is the platform I am active, and of course here on YouTube, on different knitting podcasts. This was happening last year. Of course, the pattern, I think, came out not last year, even before. I don't know exactly, but if I will search for the information, and if I find it, I will put it on the screen. I was in love with the look of this sweater. And for months, I think, I just scrolled Instagram, seeing how other people projects are looking. One thing I didn't like is that the recommended yarn was actually two threads of yarns. If I'm not mistaken, both of them are from Sandnes Garn. One of them was the mohair that they have. Sandnes Garn has, the Norwegian producer, has a mohair that combines also wool in it, so it's more rustic. Well, mohair can be considered rustic, but this from Sandnes Garn, it's it's not for everybody. Anyway, and I thought, oh my lord, this is a color work project. This is a drop shoulder, which means that some of the parts, or the beginning of the sweater, it's back and forth. And it's already difficult to work color work back and forth if you are not skilled enough. And it's already more difficult to work it with mohair, although mohair is that type of yarn that is hiding mistakes, or at least it's hiding not so good looking stitches. But still, I thought, I don't want to make this. I don't like mohair. Not I don't like to, or I cannot stand to wear it. It's just the huge static electricity I have around me. This is the main reason. Of course, another important reason is the price, because this yarn, this is pricey. And another reason is this crazy trend that started years ago, I think in the pandemic, if I'm not wrong, when suddenly was so popular to knit a garment holding two strands together and one of them to be mohair, which, yeah, okay, I understand, but does any designer needs to design a pattern that holds two strands together and one of them to be mohair? And people are talking about gauge. What we are talking about, to work two strands together and one of them to be mohair, it has a different gauge than working just one strand of yarn or two non-mohair strands of yarn together. And especially in color work. I mean, that fluff of the mohair is a game-changing when we're talking about gauge. But you already know that I have not so popular opinion about gauge. You already know that I don't believe in gauge swatching. Okay, so at the moment I decided to make the porcelain sweater, my budget was really, really, really very small. So, of course, mohair was a no-no from start. And I imagined that my next choice would have been a good quality wool, which at that time I couldn't afford. So I went for more cheap yarn like Sarah by Permin. This is technically some Shetland wool and merino that is produced in Turkey, but to be honest, it is cheap indeed, but I don't like that yarn, how it behaves in time, how much it grows, and yeah, it's not the greatest quality. Anyway, I held double this yarn with an alpaca from Sames Garn, alpaca Folgetröd, which is a lace alpaca. And for the contrasting color, I had, so the main color was a creamy white, and the contrasting color was a beige that I changed into like a mustard color, because the contrast in between the cream and the light beige was almost inexistent. Anyway, I made a sweater. I think I was with few projects in my knitting life, I was so frustrated. And then I realized that it's something that the designer never mentioned. Normally they need to mention it because she was advertising the pattern with the model. I don't know if the model is the designer itself, and the sweater was looking so different on the model. I mean, was looking different, and I was not the only one noticing. So she never specified that she was wearing 2-3 sizes more. And although I've made a size that will give me technically positive ease, the sweater never looked on me like on her. Of course, I didn't expect to look exactly, because I am a different type of body, she is a different type of body, but still, that sweater was not what I expected. And I didn't like the fit. Not only the fit, it was the way the sweater was sitting. The front, I find it that it was very high. Although the neckline was not high on the neck technically, it was sitting totally right, and the back was pulling more in the back, which means the front was sitting very high, and it was very uncomfortable. I mean, every time I was wearing that, I felt like not only just to pull the sweater down, if I pull it down, it was rising at the back. So something was wrong with the math in the pattern and the color work. I mean, the chart was not, it was not correct. The chart was correct, but I don't know, there was something missing on that pattern. And I think part of it is that because you are starting with a panel, if I remember correctly, I hope to not give you wrong information. So there were no short rows at the back, and I understand, because yeah, you have also a color work panel at the back when you're working back and forth. And then I think there were a little bit of short rows on the front, but those short rows were doing nothing, absolutely nothing for the general fit of the sweater. Then it was the sleeves. When you need to pick up stitches for the sleeves, I didn't realize that I should have done something, because she gives you instruction in the pattern how to work the last stitch, which sometimes can be a color work stitch, and the pickup line of the stitches was the messiest I have ever done before. I mean, I worn that sweater a couple of times, and I was always checking if my color work will be damaged, because all the sleeve was pulling on stitches that I felt they were not strong enough to hold a sleeve, a colorwork sleeve. So that edge was messy. Of course, when making this with mohair, it's not that visible, I think. And then there was the length. Of course, you might think, okay, but what has to do the length with the pattern? Well, it has to do because when you advertise a pattern and you don't mention what are the measurements of the model and what size the model is wearing, you will imagine that maybe on you will have this drop shoulder, cozy, roomy, in a good way sweater. Just something that this was the feeling when seeing the pictures with this sweater, was that feeling that I just want to take that on me and feel cozy all the day. Just I want that sweater to hug my body all day. And unfortunately, I got something else, and I've tried. First time it was too short, and because it was sitting so wrong on the shoulder and the front was getting high, and I was pulling the front and the back was getting high, and it was strange, very strange. And then I unraveled and I added length, and then I unraveled again, and I took out a little bit of the length and made again the hem, and wash it again, block it again, and then I give up. And I've said, you know what, when I wear a sweater like this one, I have it on me now, I feel good in it. This is far away from a perfect sweater, but it's a sweater I feel comfortable with. I feel nice wearing it, even if it's still rising, as you can see, it's nothing uncomfortable. Well, it was not the case of that sweater. So in conclusion, that sweater, I still think it's so beautiful looking. Maybe it is the motif, maybe it is the color, that true porcelain blue. I still think it's a very good looking, attractive, if we can say so, about a sweater. But that sweater didn't work for me, and I'm not the only one who thinks so. And do I want to knit that pattern again? No, I don't. I think out there are so many other options. Of course, they are not so popular because, again, social media and influence, knitting influence, which gets me to what I think about a knitting podcast, because I am a very much, how do you say, I love knitting podcasts. This is the content I watch the most, along with renovating old cabins in Scandinavia, which is my next, if not almost the same, YouTube content I like to see. And of course, when seeing knitting podcasts, it's suddenly like you feel the need to knit everything that everybody is knitting and showing in the podcast. But making myself a knitting podcast, I realized that a knitting podcast should not influence. A knitting podcast should inspire, and not necessarily should inspire to knit the same thing. Hi, baby. My son just came home. I'm doing a video. So, uh, as I've said, a knitting podcast should not influence in this way. I think it should inspire and not necessarily to inspire the knitters to knit the same thing. It can be helpful to, I don't know, help somebody choosing a color that maybe they couldn't imagine in a finished garment, or choosing a technique that they didn't try, or choosing, I don't know, just a texture, or choosing to do a similar modification. I think this should be the inspiration. And of course, if somebody decides to knit a sweater like in that knitting podcast, that's wonderful, as long as it is something that that person really needs. But knitting just because somebody who has influence, um, I don't think it's okay. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think. I think it matters what everybody choose to do. Yeah. Okay, now let's get into another knitting pattern that didn't work for me. And I've really tried, because I've made two versions. So there is an extremely popular knitting sweater from my favorite things knitwear. And I don't know if I'm getting wrong. It's maybe sweater number 18. If I'm getting wrong, I will correct myself and put it on the screen. It's this, again, drop shoulder that features this nice knit and pearl texture. Um, I've made it first time using Sadness Garn Kus. This is a yarn with alpaca and other things that is very weird to knit, at least for me. It's fluffy, but it's not like the mohair, and I I didn't enjoy knitting with that yarn that was getting stuck in everything, in my needles, in my nails, in my um, hand skin, if my skin was not really very well moisturized, do you say? um, Sorry if I'm butchering this word. Yeah, I didn't enjoy knitting with that. At the time I started that sweater, I was thinking I will do it for my son. I even had him try on the sweater several times. By the time I finished the sweater, he was not interested in wearing it. And I thought I will add length on the sleeves, and maybe my husband will have it. I didn't. Again, I had the same problem as the porcelain sweater with the feet. This designer is very well known for making these garments with huge amount of positives. I mean, we are talking about at least 20 centimeters of positives. And again, a sweater like this will, I don't know, give you this winter vibe, sitting in the house on the couch, seeing a great movie and drinking, I don't know, hot chocolate, and sitting like by the next, not by the next to the fire, or knitting, and having these sweaters with 30 and something centimeters positive is hugging ourselves. Yeah. It's not happening in the real life. Maybe it's happening for for some of the people, but I don't have a fireplace. And I will never sit next to a fireplace with my body um swallowed by that gorgeous sweater, and I will look gorgeous. Let's be realistic, guys. So it amazed me how, yeah, these pictures, when the designer are publishing the patterns, are looking so great, so great. I don't know, it's this look of Scandinavian vibe and all these neutral colors. And I like something that I heard Lincoln Newman said recently. This is a sweater and the pattern that I've made from Lincoln Newman, or Neumann. She's a Norwegian designer, and I think she lives in North Norway, where the climate, of course, it's different. The winters are long and cold, and there is a lot of snow, and more darker, and for yeah, more months than here in this part of Norway. And she was showing, I think she renovated the not the living room, but the family room, the room they spend time together. And it was nothing like we see in these pictures on internet and in other people's lives, where everything is cottage and cozy, and I don't know what vibe it has. And she said that she appreciate truly Norwegian, old Norwegian traditions. And all Norwegian traditions were colors, a lot of red and a lot of other colors. And she likes that. And it was so interesting for me to hear that, because I didn't knew that. I thought that everything was neutral and beige and creamy and gray and light brown and so on. So that was interesting. So this is happening with the pictures of this designer and others. Everything is so perfect. The background is perfect, the window is perfect, the thing that is sitting here is perfect, everything is perfect. Yeah, well, it's nice, but we all know that perfection does not exist. So is this something that is making us to achieve something that might not be us, possibly? And again, I think it's important how what we take from social media, and how we let ourselves influence. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am admiring all of this. I like to see pictures and backgrounds from beautiful houses that I don't have, and maybe I will never have a house like that. But yeah, we can dream. But I'm making the difference in between, what's not achievable and what it is achievable, and yeah. Now again, coming back to the pattern, so it was the fit. The fit was my huge problem. Now, about the yarn, I have to say that as much as I didn't enjoy knitting with this yarn, Sandnes Garn Kus, after washing the garment, indeed it felt very nice, very warm, although the garment was very light, because this yarn, it's like a blown yarn. It's very beautiful after washing, but again, I didn't enjoy knitting with that yarn. And because I didn't like the fit of it, at this part, at the upper part and neckline and shoulders, I thought, you know what, I will give it again a try, and I will make a different version. I will modify it. And I think, no, it's not a sweater that took me truly into modifying. There was another one. Uh, and I said, okay, how hard this can be. And I've made one with a v-neck. And at that time where I had like 80 and something kilograms and my bust was 120, I think 24 or 26 centimeters, I have to say that I've done a very good job. I mean, the v-neck was not sitting low, but it was not sitting too high. It was a really very it gave to the sweater a different fit. The problem is that I could have kept the sweater. I don't have it anymore. None of them, I talk about it now, I don't have them anymore. I gifted them. But I've used, because again, I did not have a budget. I've unraveled an old test knit that never made, I just didn't finish. And I've used that yarn, and that yarn was one strand of Pernilla by Filcolana and one strand of lace wool from a company name, the name of the company, it is Knoll Yarns. It's a British yarn. It's similar to these brands like Woolinet, also from UK, and like Holsgarn from Denmark. Yeah, and the problem was not what yarn I've used. The problem is that the Filcolana was a very dark brown, and the wool lace thread I had, it was red. I mean, red like this one. And imagine the brown I had, it was more, even darker than I have on this sweater. And I realized that that combination was not me. I just don't like that thing. And yeah, this was the reason I gave up. Now, would I knit this pattern again? If I will knit this again, I don't know. I still like the texture. Yeah, I like very much these projects where you combine knit and pearls. It's just something I enjoy to knit. And maybe because also I have no problem with purling. Purling, actually now I am purling. And it feels even more natural than knitting for me because of my style of knitting. So if I will decide at some point that I want to make again this sweater, with the experience I have now, I think I could modify it in a way that I will enjoy wearing it. Yes, definitely. I can even make my own version by pieces. I can even make a version bottom up. I can do whatever I want because, yeah, I can do this. So, as you noticed, I didn't say I will never need this again. I don't know if I will, but if I will definitely modify the pattern. Okay, let's see another popular pattern that didn't work for me. And that will be the Copenhagen cardigan by Petit Knit. This is indeed one of her oldest patterns, maybe one of the first patterns she ever published. And I know that recently she upgraded the pattern in terms of size inclusivity, but she never modified it at all. I don't like the fit of the pattern. And when I'm saying the fit, I'm saying numbers in this pattern. I think the neckline is too wide. And I talked about this on in a previous episode. I think when you, no matter how you start, that you start bottom up or top down, when you start with the ribbing, um, there will always be a loosely fabric that you will get, because you don't have weight to pull these details. So that's that. The neckline, I think, is too big. I think it keeps growing and growing with wearing. The bottom bands, I think it's not worth it to make them. Of course, if you make this, maybe this is something I should explain from the beginning. When I'm talking on these garments not working for me, I'm talking about me wearing my garments all the time. I mean, I don't need a pattern to wear it here and there because, I have that. I've made it. Maybe it's good to wear it. No, my hand knitted garments are everything I own in my closet. I don't have sweaters from a store. So, of course, they get a lot of wear, and that details, they don't last long with hard wearing. And hard wearing meaning wearing a lot. Yes. I also think that the bigger size you are making, the wrong numbers you have in the pattern. I think the upper part of the cardigan is becoming longer and longer, and the width of the arm it's becoming wider and wider. The more the bigger the size, of course, the bigger the numbers. So that is a pattern didn't work for me. And trust me, oh boy, I've tried this. I've made this 2 times. And the second time I've did it, I've done so many modifications. And still, I didn't like the neckline. Now, if I will make that again, I know how to make it to work. But do I want to make that again? I don't know. It took a lot of energy to think about how can I adapt that pattern to have a nice raglan cardigan. For the moment, I give up to make my 3rd try, but who knows? Maybe later I will do that. Now let's talk about the 4th, and maybe I will add another one. So we will talk about 5 today. I will talk. Another pattern that did not work for me was the from Kate Davies. God, if I will only remember the name of the sweater, I will put it on the screen. I just had it before to talk about it and I forgot. I forgot the name of the pattern. I will put it on the screen. I never wore this sweater. and I had a problem with dye lots. I think I had at least 2, if not 3 dye lots on this yarn, and I didn't even realize until I washed the garment and tried it on. And that's because I was in the natural light outside in my garden. Now, that is a bottom-up construction. It is a pattern that it's meant to have a huge amount of positivities. I think there are just 2 or 3 sizes. I mean, we are talking about 30, maybe 40 centimeters of positivities. It is different from everything I've made, which made it interesting for me. Now, looking back, I know I could have fixed those problems, that neckline that was sitting very high again. Yeah, I could have fixed some of the problems, but I just lost the patience with that project. And to be honest, I've made the sweater using Gepard wool. Now, after many months, I can tell you that I don't enjoy that yarn. I don't like the feeling of the yarn. It feels like plastic, although it's not plastic. I don't know if it is because of how the yarn is processed and made. There is something I don't like about the yarn looking back. Smoky sweater. I remember it's the Smoky sweater by Davies. Do I want to make that sweater again? I don't know. I never thought about it. There was a lot of work. Although it's looking like a very complicated cable pattern, it's actually cross stitches, and they create the look of cabling. So that part was not hard. I found the charts. I think it was the first time seeing a chart so smart, made by colors, and it was absolutely fantastic and easy to follow. So that's a very plus. I found it was my first pattern from her, and it was different, a different rhythm pattern than anything I've made so far. So you kind of guess that she is from that old school category that I so much love. Very, for me, it was very refreshing, and I felt I've learned so much with that pattern. So just because of these things, I don't regret the time I spent on that sweater, even if I don't have it with me anymore. But one thing I know for sure, even if I don't re-knit the Smoky sweater ever, I know I want to visit Davies patterns again, because I'm sure I will find my gem in her work. I'm sure I can find something that will be a success for me. And that's that about Smoky sweater. Now, another pattern that didn't work for me was the Elizabeth blouse. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think there is something wrong with this pattern. I think it's a nice pattern, but I think it's not my style, at least not at this point in my life. So it didn't work for me because of that, but also because of my choice of yarn. So that Elizabeth blouse was a lot of work. a lot of work. And for that blouse, I've used, I forgot to mention the Elizabeth blouse from Petite Knit. I've used first time a superwash hand dyed plus thread of mohair tilia from Filconana. That was, I think, my most expensive project, knitting project ever for myself. You would have think that, okay, an expensive project must be a wonderful. No, it wasn't. First of all, that was my first and the last time working with a superwash hand dye yarn because I don't like it. I don't like that yarn. I don't like the feel of the yarn. And I don't like how much it grows, that yarn. I know everybody is saying superwash, you can wash it on a washing machine. What are we talking about? I'm wearing wool. I'm knitting with wool and I'm always washing my wool at a washing machine. Why would I like to wear something superwash just because I can wash it on the washing machine, but I don't enjoy it? And the way it grows with washing, with wearing, losing the shape, I don't know. I heard very good things about superwash. There are a lot of knitters that are so happy with this material. Well, I don't know how, but who am I to say that they are wrong? If they have a good experience with it, then go for it. I didn't, so for me, one time was more than enough. Now, as I've said, that pattern was a lot of work because it was stuck in a stitch. Now, looking back and knowing better myself as a knitter now than I was a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, um, I can say now that that pattern didn't felt like a challenge for me, and sometimes it was even extremely boring, and that's not good, you know. I mean, a stockinette stitch project should feel relaxing, should feel like a break in between more engaging projects, in between projects that takes more from you, more concentration, more attention, more time to do it. Yeah, you know, it should have felt like a break in between, but instead of that, it felt like something that will never end. And this type of project, it's really not something I like. As I've said, I like to challenge myself. I feel like I still have so much to learn. I want to reach a point where I can see knitting things with the eyes of my mind, to not uh, doing a project just because I fear it will be a fail. I think I want to gain that confidence that will give me the possibilities to make all kind of projects, even with techniques that are not that easy or comfortable or even enjoyable to make sometimes. And unfortunately, Elizabeth Blouse was nothing, absolutely nothing uh, attractive as a project. Extremely boring. But that's how I feel. It's not something that it's not because it's not a nice project. It's because it didn't work for me. and I don't have it, I gift it. And I think I will talk about one more project that I was extremely excited to make it, and that is a colorwork sweater. Again, I don't know, I don't remember the name, but I will put it on the screen. I don't know if, I think it's no, it's not Starry Down. No, that is another one. Yeah, I don't remember, but I will put it on the screen. It is a colorwork sweater, a top down, round yoke, that features a gorgeous star motif on the yoke, and that motif goes a little bit on the body after you split the sleeves from the body, and it goes a little bit on the sleeves. This was a pattern by, and it is a pattern by Zanette Knits. She has very beautiful visually knitting patterns, sweater, color work, and not only. I've choose to make it neutral. I've used for the main color that marzipan from Filcolana Pernilla. It was more affordable at that time for me. And for the contrasting color, it was a gift from my husband when we went one day in Bergen, and we were I was admiring some hand-dyed yarns. And it was a skin from La Bien-Aimée, some merino, which also was super wash, but was feeling different than the other superwash from Elizabeth Blouse. More better quality, I could say. Still not convinced me to make more with that yarn, especially that it was, I remember, I think my husband paid 30 and something euro for that hank of yarn for 100 grams. It was just unbelievable expensive for hours, for not for hours, for us and for me at that point. I still think it's expensive even today. Anyway, I've made that sweater and I was so excited with it. But the only reason I'm not wearing that sweater, although I could wear it now even if I lost weight, is the fit of the sweater on the yoke. It's the front that it's sitting high, it's rising when walking, when using the hands, when everything it goes up. It has a little bit of short rows at the beginning because it's top down, but I don't like it. I just, yeah, I don't, because of that reason, I don't like it. And I think a part of the porcelain sweater, which also I was excited to make it because it was drop shoulder. I think this sweater from Zanette Knits was my last color work circular yoke before this. So yeah, this is the reason I just gave up. I enjoy making them, but it's a problem with wearing. And I think that sweater would have fit gorgeous if I would have been able to do short rows when separating the sleeve stitches from the body, which I couldn't because the color work continues, I think at least 12, 14 rows after you separating the sleeves from the body. So I could not do the short rows. Yes. So this is another pattern that didn't work for me. Now, do I have more? I do, but I don't want this episode to be a long episode or a chatty episode, too long. But let me know, what do you think? Do you want to go through more of the patterns that didn't work for me? Again, I'm not trying to give negative feedback, because what didn't work for me, it might work perfectly for somebody else. I mean, it's absolutely normal, because we are different. We like different things, and we, I don't know, maybe when knitting related, there are some things that I consider extremely important in a pattern, for myself, but maybe you don't. Maybe for you it's something else that matters more. And yeah, as I've said, we are so different in we are coming in all the shapes and heights and weights. And yeah, I think it's absolutely normal, but that doesn't mean that I cannot come here and uh, talk about it, because it's also not fair for those knitters that are watching this content to feel inferior because I am knitting so much and they don't knit so much. They don't have the same number of garments. You don't knit them. Just in case you really, really enjoy to knit for yourself and you really want those in the wardrobe. But other than that, don't feel bad that you don't need the same number as I do, because I'm very sure I'm not needing the same as others are doing. So I don't want you to think that you are doing less than me, because the difference is that I'm coming here once a month, or who knows how many times, and doing a parade of look how beautiful I am doing, or look what I am working, or no, I'm coming to you because I feel that I have friends to talk to, and I like to talk about my projects, and I like to talk about the challenging these projects are giving to me or not. And I like to give you a very um, honest opinion, because it has been time since I've made these garments that I talked about today, and I don't wear them in the podcast because I have so many knits. I didn't have the chance to um, wear them all in the podcast. So I thought you might want to know what's happening behind the scenes, behind of this huge number of projects that I'm keep casting on and keep knitting and keep finishing and keep taking pictures. And yeah, I just wanted you to know the truth, that sometimes things are not like they seem. And even if I have been eating so much in the last 3 years of my life, and in the last 1 and something years since I'm making this podcast, that doesn't mean that everything I have need is still in my wardrobe or fit me as it should be. So if you want more chatty episodes, just leave me a comment. And also, I would like to know about your experience. I mean, is everything that you have knitted so far still in your closet? It's everything fitting like in the pictures of some patterns? Is everything um, still wearing well, or what was wrong? Is the size that you choose wrong, or it's the yarn that didn't do well with the pattern? I'm just so curious for you to share with me your experience. And if you like it, just give it a like, leave a comment, and I will come back to talk more about those disappointing knitted garments, because at the end of the day, they are disappointing. Take care and see you next time. Bye bye.